That works now. There we go. All right, we're back online now. Sorry about that. Just had a little bit of a freeze over on my YouTube feed. Needed to fix that with my streaming software. So, anyway, let's see, what else is there to chat about this evening? And again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the chat. Oh, I wanted to talk about this because I've been hearing some thoughts that um, there is a school of thought, there is some belief out there that the people who are behind the Prop 4 repeal are somehow holding back signatures. Because right now, and you know what? I'm going to bring this up for everybody to see. We have some visual aids here. Let me find my button. This is my interactive map that I have created at utahpolitics.news to show you where the effort to put the repeal of Prop 4 on the ballot stands right now. They are currently at 51.63% of the statewide signatures they need. They need to get 140,748. And the last day that they can turn them in is the 15th. That is a week from Sunday. Right now, they have 72,760 verified signatures. They still need 68,078. Their daily goal right now is 6,808 by the 15th in order to make it. If you look at this map of the state, the darker the red, the closer they are to qualifying, because not only do they need to get the statewide number of signatures, but they also have to get signatures from 8% of voters in 26 of the state's 29 Senate districts. And right now, they have only crossed that line in two. They've only done it in two. Senate District 27, Senate District 29, down here in the southern part of the state. Let me bring this up so you can see it. 27 and 29. That's the only places where they have reached that goal. They finally crossed 50% on Wednesday. They started collecting signatures as of today 79 days ago, and they finally got to 50% in 79 days. And they've got 10 to go. Even if they get to this pace right here, the 6,808 signatures a day to reach the statewide goal, it's not going to be enough to qualify in the 26 Senate districts that they need in order to get on the ballot. They are far short. Right now, according to my calculations, at that rate, they would only qualify in 10 districts. These are the 19 districts that would fail to get to that 8% threshold if they can get 6,808 new verified signatures a day. So that's where we're at. And up here, as I keep pointing out, Senate District 7, that's Senate President Stuart Adams' district, and it is one of the lowest in the state, the second lowest. And they would only get to they wouldn't even get to 50%. Right now they're at 25%. A few of their districts, they are close. I suspect that the next district to qualify will be this one, Senate District 28. And it could do it tomorrow. They need 395 more signatures to get there. But they have been collecting for 79 days as of today. They kicked this off back on November 18th, I believe. That was when they started collecting signatures, and they just got to the halfway point yesterday. So they are behind. They are really behind in the pace that they need. But let's talk about this, though, because there is a school of thought out there. There are some people who are suggesting that organizers, people behind this effort to repeal Prop 4, that they have enough signatures. They have all the signatures they need, and they're just sitting on them, waiting to dump them all at the deadline. I understand why people would think about that, but that strategy does not hold water, and it actually, if they were to do that, it would almost assuredly mean that they would fail, because you get real-time feedback when you are turning in signatures. You get to see what your validation rate is, because all of the signatures have to be verified by the county clerks. So assuming that their validation rate, assuming that 75, let's say 70 to 75% of the signatures that they turn in are valid, meaning 25 to 30% get thrown out. That's a little bit higher than the national average. Usually it's around somewhere between 20 and 25, but I'm saying maybe 25 to 30%. That means that they would need to turn in 91,000 to 97,000 signatures to get to the statewide total. And the sooner you submit them, it's a feedback loop, because you can see the high rejection rates, you can see where you're behind, you can see where your signatures are getting rejected, and you can change course. So waiting until the last minute when you can't turn in these signatures anymore makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Right now, there are 19 districts on track to fail. They need to target their efforts in those 19 districts, because they have to cross the finish line in 16 of the 19. And if you wait until the last second, you're not going to know where to target. So again, that also doesn't make any sense. Hoarding your signatures, it keeps you away from that intelligence, from that information. And there's some people saying, well, what it's going to do is it's going to, you dump them all at the last second, and that puts a lot of pressure on the clerks, and then the clerks will probably get a little lax with their signature validation standards. That's not how it works. The clerks have 21 days from when you turn them in. They'll have plenty of time to go through and verify these signatures. They have plenty of time. It's not going to create any pressure on the clerks. I mean, the clerks will have a lot of work to do, but it's not going to pressure them. Dumping all of these at the last second, it just puts all the risk on the back end, on the campaign. All the risk is on the campaign at that point. And you're just, now, this, they could, if they've got 200,000 signatures that they're sitting on, then maybe they're waiting to the last second. But they are not acting like an organization that's sitting on 200,000 signatures. They are panicking. They are sending out email blasts, all hands on deck. Turning Point USA is coming to the state to help them get signatures. They brought in Scott Pressler, a conservative influencer, to help them get signatures. They are panicking because of all the money they put in this. And it certainly looks like they are on the verge of failing, because the rules that they put in place to make it hard to put a ballot initiative on the ballot is coming back to bite them in the butt. That's what's happening here. So when you hear people say they've got enough signatures, they're waiting to put them in at the end, that strategy makes no sense. That's just wish casting there. Because there's no mathematical evidence that that's where they are. It makes no sense for them to do that. That's one of the reasons why they are changing the law to make it so that clerks, so that candidates, when they turn in signatures, clerks can verify them on a rolling basis. So candidates know when they need to go out and get more, where they're having trouble. It just makes a ton of sense. So they need that feedback loop. So sitting on a bunch at the end, it doesn't make sense. Now, if they get really close next week, maybe. But I think we're going to have a really good sense how close they are going to get in the next couple of days. We'll get a signature update tomorrow. They'll have to wait on the weekend. There's always a lag because Monday's numbers will probably be ones that were verified today and tomorrow, and so on and so forth. But as it stands right now, the math is really bad. The math is really mean for them. Looking through the comments, if anybody has any thoughts, anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to talk about, any questions, please leave them in the chat. Emma Jolo on YouTube says, can people still pull their signature after they have been turned into the county clerks? Yes, you can. In fact, Better Boundaries, that's a group who was initially behind Prop 4. They're the ones who put Prop 4 on the ballot. That organization, they were part of the organizers of that in 2018. They have announced a campaign where they're sending out mailers to people explaining what they signed and telling them how to get their signatures removed from the ballot. You do have a period of time. I think it's like 21 days after the signature or your name is posted online as someone who has signed it. But the rule of thumb is do it as quickly as possible. Now, these mailers that are going out from Better Boundaries, all you have to do is just send those back in, and that will get your name taken off. And we're seeing that. Like I said before, last week we saw one day where 4 Senate districts actually had fewer numbers than the day before when the new numbers came out. That was from people removing their signatures. So yes, people can pull their signatures after it's been submitted to the clerks, but you only have a limited amount of time. And the Republican Party was not happy about that. They put out a pretty snarky statement, and they still are leaning on this whole shadowy out-of-state groups who don't represent Utah values funding these ballot initiatives. That's who's funding their ballot initiative. As we've said before, it's a group called Securing American Greatness. They are a dark money group that is connected to the Trump political machine. So, sorry, just got a text from a source, and it's a story that I'm going to have to follow up on. Let's talk about what's happening in Davis County, because this is funny. This is interesting. I mentioned Davis County earlier in the program, the Davis County Republican Party, as sort of the beating heart of the radical part of the Utah Republican Party. And they do not like the signature path for candidates at all. At least the party officials don't. They hate it. They are trying to encourage people to not take the signature path. There are 41 candidates, 41 Republicans who filed to run this year in Davis County for county seats all the way up to state legislative seats. But only 13 of them are doing the convention route only. The others are gathering signatures, or at least filed to collect signatures. And the party does not like that. They are really mad. They sent out an email blast earlier this week that said, it quotes their bylaws. The bylaw of the Davis County Republican Party says, quote, "The only authorized method recognized by the DCRP to qualify for the primary elections is via the caucus convention system as contained in the Constitution and bylaws. We encourage you to say no to those who are seeking to gather signatures to get on the primary ballot and instead have a real voice by attending your neighborhood caucus." Unfortunately for them, it doesn't matter what their bylaws say because state law is what controls here. And state law says that the Utah Republican Party, which is the party that has ballot access. The Davis County Republican Party does not have ballot access. The Utah Republican Party has ballot access. And they elected to, for this election cycle, be what is known as a qualified political party. That's what's in Senate Bill 54, which created the signature path. Political parties can choose two routes to the ballot. They can either be a registered political party or a qualified political party. If you are a qualified political party, you can use the caucus and convention system to nominate candidates, but you must also allow candidates to gather signatures. If you don't do that, then you are what is known as a registered political party. And a registered political party, you can only collect signatures. And the Utah Republican Party, the state party, they have to make a declaration every election cycle to the state and say whether they are going to be a QPP or an RPP. And they are a QPP. So it does not matter at all what the Davis County bylaws say about this. It is state law that controls. But they have been trying to jawbone people into not collecting signatures. Now, one of the things that has really irritated them, though, is Representative Ray Ward in, I believe, House District 18 or 19. He has elected to do signatures only. He's not going to the convention, and I don't blame him. He has been treated so poorly by Republican delegates in Davis County, especially in 2024. He was heckled and booed, and so now he is just gathering signatures. He is not going to go to the convention, and I don't blame him. And he's also running unopposed, so there's nothing that they can do about it. And it is apparent. I've been told by people who know it is absolutely driving the party officials crazy because they have no leverage over Representative Ward. There's no Republican running against him. There's no Democrat running against him. And he filed to just get signatures to be on the ballot, and that's it. They can't do anything about it, and they hate it. But even Representative Trevor Lee filed to collect signatures. That's what his candidate filing says. Now, he has said that, oh, no, I'm only going to do convention. That's not the box you checked on your candidate filing, buddy. That's not the box you checked. You checked both, convention and signature path. And you know what? His opponent, I think Bob Stevenson, is collecting signatures because he's not going to have this. He's not going to have the same fate. He's not going to follow the same fate that happened to Steve Handy. Because what happened, if you'll remember, the reason Trevor Lee is in office, because in 2022, Steve Handy decided not to collect signatures. And Trevor Lee challenged him at convention. And I think Trevor got like 37 votes at convention, and that was enough to win the nomination outright. And Steve Handy's political career ended on that day because he didn't get signatures. But there's only 4 legislative candidates who are doing convention only. Jennifer Garner, who is running in Senate District 7, she is one of the 3 Republicans challenging President Stuart Adams. She is doing convention only, and that's not surprising. Jennifer Garner is is very anti-SB 54. Jill Koford, who currently is in the House, she's running to replace Senator Ann Milner in SD 5. She's doing convention only. She does not have a Republican challenger. The other Republicans in the SD 7 race with Jennifer Garner, Stuart Adams, and the other 2, whose names are escaping me, they are all collecting signatures and they are turning them in. So that nomination will not be decided at convention. Jennifer Garner could win at convention, it doesn't matter, because a number of people are going to get signatures, and that's why I think it's going to go to primary. Jill Koford, she'll win it at convention. She does not have a Republican challenger. Deva Ann Neal, who is challenging Speaker Mike Schultz In HD 12, she's doing convention only. Schultz is collecting signatures. That one, I don't know if it'll be decided at convention. And John Taylor, he is one of two Republicans running to replace Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby in HD 14. He's doing convention only. The other Republican is gathering signatures. So it's unlikely that three of those four nominations will be decided at convention, and we'll have to go to a primary. But the Davis County Republican Party, they hate the signature path, and they are trying to jawbone, browbeat, whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use, to describe it. They're trying to push their candidates to not get signatures or bully them, and it's not working. Because everybody up there saw what happened to Steve Handy. They saw what happened. Steve Handy made a huge mistake, and it cost him his political career. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. Here was a comment on Instagram that says, so if they fail gathering signatures, we're back to the Prop 4 repeal. If they fail gathering signatures, and I doubt they're going to stop, what would they try doing to block the maps? Well, there's a couple of lawsuits. There is the appeal to the Utah Supreme Court, and then there's a federal lawsuit that was filed by a coalition of Republicans, chief among them Representatives Burgess Owens and Representative Celeste Malloy, trying to block the maps. Now, take this for what it's worth. I don't know if you saw this, but the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday declined to hear a challenge to California's new congressional map, which was completely redrawn on a partisan gerrymandering basis. Republicans in that state challenged the map as an illegal gerrymander, and the U.S. Supreme Court is not going to hear that case. So that map is going to stand for this year's election, that new California map that could put as many as 5 more Democrats in Congress. That map is going to stand. And I know it's not the same case, but you have to wonder if the U.S. Supreme Court would hear a challenge from Utah to this map. I think the only case that the Supreme Court has said that they're kind of out of the gerrymandering business. They're kind of out of deciding gerrymandering unless it's an illegal racial gerrymander. Partisan gerrymandering is just fine, and we saw that with the California decision. They said that partisan gerrymandering is fine. So, that's where things stand there. All right, last call for questions or comments. Lady of the Great Salt Lake on TikTok says, why is Davis County so weird? You think their proximity to cities would make them a bit bluer? I don't know what it is, but there is a strain of, I guess, extremism that runs through there. I mentioned earlier that one of the main people there, Tina Horlocker, and the reason I discovered this is because I had heard, I did some digging. I pulled the property records on her house, and she was possibly going to lose it. I think there was a divorce or something along those lines. But she had done something really strange. She had filed a lien on her own house, like $1 million lien on her own house. So they, and I guess the play was to make it so that if someone was going to take the house away, they'd have to pay the $1 million lien to her. But the document that she filed was just riddled with terminology and symbols used by the sovereign citizen movement. And this is an official document. It is on the Davis County website. I pulled it from there. And I showed this document to experts who follow the sovereign citizen movement, and they're like, oh yeah, that's 100% sovereign citizen stuff. In fact, one of the people who signed as a witness to this document is Jennifer Garner, who's running against Senate President Stuart Adams in SD 7. So there is there. I don't know if there's something in the water up there or what, but they do tend to drift a little further right. I was going to bring this up. I didn't mention this earlier when I was talking about the difference about SB 54 and the difference with a qualified political party and a registered political party. Back in 2018, there was a group of people on the Republican State Central Committee. And if you don't know what the Republican State Central Committee is, that is the Super Bowl for hardcore Republicans in Utah. Rob Axson is the chairman of the Republican Party, but he does not run the Republican Party. It is the State Central Committee, and it is an incredible fight to get those seats on the State Central Committee when they come up every 2 years. So back in 2018, I believe that what happened was a group on the State Central Committee, they held an emergency meeting. Like they called this emergency meeting, and not everybody could show up. And they passed a change to their bylaws that basically said, if you gather signatures, you're kicked out of the party. And that's illegal under SB 54. The moment they did that, the Republican Party should have lost ballot access. They should have become they wouldn't have lost ballot access, but they would have lost the ability to be a qualified political party. And when they did this, when it happened, people were freaking out up on the Hill. Like they were freaking out. I remember that because it was after the candidate filing period. People had already filed to run for office, I believe, or it had started. And there was the real possibility that a bunch of Republicans were going to have to run for re-election without the R next to their name because the state would have lost their ability, or the Republican Party would have lost. And so what happened was Spencer Cox, who was a lieutenant governor at the time, he just said he was going to ignore that bylaw change. He was just ignoring it. It didn't happen. We're ignoring it. It actually was on the books for a number of years until they finally got enough votes on the State Central Committee to repeal that bylaw change. I think it was probably back in 2022 or 2023, but it was on the books for all that time, and the state just decided to ignore it. It was never enforced, but you can't kick someone out of the party. And if you did that, then the Republican Party likely would have lost ballot access. Nelson Knight on TikTok says, so Stuart Adams has a challenge from the right. Ouch. He's actually got 3 challengers this year in Senate District 7. 3 Republicans are running against him. He's already collecting signatures. I think he's turned in about 300 of the 2,000 he needs to qualify for the ballot. And yeah, he's taking it seriously. And if it goes to a primary, which I suspect it will be the first time he's ever had a primary. He's had challengers at convention, but they've mostly been, fringy candidates who didn't have a chance. This one could be really interesting because one of the main challengers is a woman who was the former general counsel at Weber State University. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But Stuart Adams, like I said earlier, you can tell he's aware of that challenge, and he'll probably get some questions from some of the more extreme members of the party about this conspiratorial bill that said that the state would no longer be under the thumb of the UN or the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization. That's why he voted yes, even though the bill died today. All right, well, that's going to do it for me for tonight. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We've got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff going on. We'll be doing this more as we go on. Legislature, we're coming up on the end. We've got, as of tomorrow, 28 days left until Sine die, and it's only going to get faster. And I'll try to keep you informed about everything that's happening. We'll be doing these a number of times. Go to my website, utahpolitics.news. You can subscribe to the newsletter there for free. If you feel like supporting what I do, you can throw a couple bucks in the tip jar, or you can become a paying subscriber. You get some free stuff for that. Anyway, I think my voice is going to give out. I will talk to you again soon. Hope everybody has a great evening, and thank you for watching, and we will talk to you again soon, and be safe, everyone. Bye.